Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We've got an exciting show in store for you this morning. Sheriff Jim Allard, of course, from Steuben County, will be our guest in just a little bit. We've got Super Tuesday to look at, a big night for Trump. Interesting, Nikki Haley wins Vermont, so of course that's the talk of the media. What will she do next? But then you have such a weird, I don't want to say, well, I guess out of American Samoa, Jason Palmer defeating President Joe Biden. And then you have Minnesota having nearly 20% vote for uncommitted. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. We don't have a lot of time because we'll be talking with the sheriff. First, a message from yesterday's broadcast, this coming from a viewer. Thanks for highlighting the problems with drugs and the opportunities for help in our community. Love hearing from Brandon Buter. Yes, Brandon Buter is a favorite guest here on Frankly Speaking. We appreciate that he could join us yesterday. And today is International Black Balloon Day. You can find out more at our Facebook page. I have that full interview up there. And that is a day to remember those we've lost because of an overdose, but also to prevent future overdoses as well. Also, just a couple quick things, because I know with the sheriff coming in, we're not going to have a lot of time. I wanted to mention this just quickly because I feel that it's important, and I just don't want it to get overlooked. Let's start with this statement. Congressman Nick Langworthy unanimously endorsed for re-election by the Steuben County Republican Party. Here's his statement. I'm so grateful to receive such incredible support from the Steuben County GOP. Our country is facing numerous crises, from affordability to the open border. Now, more than ever, we need leaders who will stand up and fight to put American citizens first. The future of our country is at stake, and I'm honored that people of Steuben County GOP have entrusted me to represent them in Washington. So that's the statement from our Congressman, Nick Langworthy. Now, the chairman of the Steuben County GOP, a friend of Frankly Speaking, as you know, running for assemblyman himself, Joe Sempolinski, had this to say. Congressman Langworthy has done an outstanding job in these first 14 months in office. His strong advocacy for our region has been recognized throughout the community, and he has proven through both words and actions that he is the conservative and principled leader this community deserves in Washington. We are going to work tirelessly to keep him fighting for us in Congress. So thank you to the Steuben County GOP committee. I wanted to pass that along to you. So yes, it was a big night, maybe not the normal Super Tuesday atmosphere. It was kind of expected. Vermont, I guess, a little bit of a surprise. Haley did win her first statewide victory. So many articles of the takeaways. CNN, Fox has one, Politico has one. But Haley did win her first statewide contest in a Northeast nail-biter. So it was a close race even at the end. Vermont will award 17 delegates in the primary. If Haley does hit 50%, she'll be awarded all the state's delegates. If not, the delegates will be divided up between her and Trump. The media is having trouble covering this because they want to say, wow, look how Nikki Haley outperformed in Vermont. This is huge. But maybe it's time for her to consider wrapping things up. And she was very silent yesterday overall throughout the day. She did comment on the win in Vermont, saying, we're honored to have received the support of millions of Americans across the country today, including in Vermont, where Nikki became the first Republican woman to win 2 presidential primary contests. That's her spokesperson. So again, relatively quiet as the candidate. Unity is not achieved by simply claiming we're united. Today, in state after state, there remains a large block of Republican primary voters who are expressing deep concerns about Donald Trump. This is something that we've talked about a lot on the program. And I know I'm moving fast, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Why is she going scorched earth at the end? I can understand early on, perhaps, but once she lost her home state, I'm confused why the constant attacks. I know she's got to attack Trump to get votes. I get that, but the constant, well, he won't win. There's no chance of him winning. I just don't see what that does for her future in the Republican Party. I'm not the only one saying that. Of course, that is coming out throughout the media and from elected Republicans. Now, Biden, I think this is the biggest takeaway. I know it's American Samoa, but what a fascinating story here. Yes, Nikki Haley won Vermont. That's the number one takeaway. But the fact that Biden lost to, and it says here, a little-known challenger, an unknown challenger, I think you would make the argument. even beating out Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. Poor Dean Phillips, he's actually still in the race and can't catch a break. Jason Palmer, a self-described entrepreneur and investor, won American Samoa's caucuses, taking 4 delegates to Biden's 2. On the campaign website, Palmer describes himself as a 52-year-old resident of Baltimore, Maryland, with leadership and executive experience, working for companies like Microsoft and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among others. The other takeaways? By the way, it's only fair. Palmer did win that race, so we'll let his words be heard. Quote, "Honored to announce my victory in the American Samoa presidential primary. Thank you to the incredible community for your support. This win is a testament to the power of our voices together. We can rebuild the American dream and shape a brighter future for all." The rest are pretty much concerns grow over Trump's ability to win over Haley supporters. If you look at the numbers, though, on Haley supporters, 50%, boy, I'm running late, 50% of North Carolina Haley voters say they're not part of the MAGA movement. Okay, that makes sense. We've talked about the Democrats and independents that have leaned towards Nikki Haley because of their dislike of Trump. But I think this number is much more telling. A CNN exit poll shows that 85% of Haley voters approve of Biden on Super Tuesday. So 85% of Haley voters believe that Biden is doing, or approve, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, approve of Biden. So when people tell you, no, it's not just Democrats, it's not just independents, I'm sure there are some more Bush-era Republicans out there that are voting for her. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But if 85% of her voters believe that Biden's doing a good job, what would they actually do? When they keep telling us Trump can't get her voters, maybe. But what are they going to do come Election Day if she were to get the nomination? They're going to vote for Biden, right? So I think it's kind of a lost battle in that argument. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street. You're watching Frankly Speaking. I can't thank you enough for that. As I mentioned, Sheriff Jim Allard will be in just a few moments. So Minnesota Democrat, the uncommitted vote nears 20% in the latest Biden rebuke. This is because of his commitment, for lack of a better word, to Israel. But I would suggest that it in rhetoric at least, there isn't that commitment there. So will we see a weakening? Unfortunately, I believe so. With 95% of the expected vote tabulated, 70.5% of voters backed Biden, while 19.0% went uncommitted, according to the Associated Press. Disgruntled progressive activists and organizations have embarked on a campaign to push voters to mark themselves uncommitted in that protest. We received a couple of comments. I meant to mention it early. I would have to agree to a point with Ken. Ken says that Nikki Haley is looking to go no labels. She may be. I know she's said in the past she's not interested in no labels. She's going to beat Trump outright. But her rhetoric and some of the things that she's saying makes you question that if she's not thinking about a third party. Speaking of third party, do you see that RFK Jr. is thinking of going libertarian as well? Kind of interesting. But back to Nikki Haley. Yes, there seems to be some motivation for her staying in the race. Though she was very quiet yesterday. But some reason why she's still in the attack mode, even though she lost her home state, knew she wasn't going to do good on Super Tuesday, did win Vermont by a slim margin, not enough to really, I mean, the media is making a big deal out of it, but in the scheme of things. Anyway, so thank you for that comment. Here's another comment from a viewer. Nikki Haley has gone too far down the hate Trump rabbit hole. She would look like a traitor to her supporters if she doesn't stay with that crowd's thoughts. But that's an interesting point, too. I read a piece that suggested she's more of a Bush Republican, and that's not what's in right now. And what's interesting is because Bush Republicans are always the one that the media tell us are going to win. The Jeb Bushes, the Romneys, the McCains. So it is interesting to kind of hitch your wagon in that direction. But I think these are all very good points. I'm not sure what this does for her future. Such a young person that could have ran, when we talk about presidential years, could have ran numerous more times. Not sure why she went this direction unless she feels that there's a movement of that kind of Bush Republican or a third party run. I've got to mention this guy again, Jason Palmer, defeating President Joe Biden in the American Samoa caucus. The reason I got to mention this, imagine that you just received delegates to be president of the United States. Now, is this the longest of long shots? Absolutely. But you still, in the history books, you're in there, right? How did he find out that he won? Well, quote, I found out that I had won because my phone started blowing up with friends and campaign staffers texting me. I've been campaigning remotely, doing Zoom town halls, talking to people, listening to them about their concerns and what matters to them. So the Baltimore-based investor snagged at least 4 of the island's 6 delegates away from Biden without even setting foot in the tropical paradise. It seems like there'll be more to that story in the future. An interesting story. I know nothing more about Jason Palmer, his history, anything like that. Just that he defeated the president in American Samoa caucuses. Another comment here. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I have to agree with a piece that you read from a viewer about the chaos surrounding President Trump. The chaos is largely not of his making, rather, like you said, the tactic that they use to keep the narrative front and center. I'm tired of it. We're all tired of it. But does anyone think for 1 minute that unless we vote in a rhino they're promoting, it won't be more of the same? I would argue, good point. I would argue that even if we were to vote in the rhino that they want, it does not stop there. They found their playbook. They've always had their playbook, but they found it and amplified it with Trump. And in this case, I think, okay, these people didn't win, but look at McCain, look at Romney, look at Jeb Bush, look at how they treated them when they got the nomination. So it's all fake and phony. So there's the sheriff coming in right now as we wrap up our discussion on Super Tuesday. Keep those comments coming in. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, we have Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is. We got a lot to talk about. Speaking of Steuben County, do you want to start there? There's so many things we could talk about. I know. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the legal battle a little bit because you've been on the program and kind enough to be on the program numerous times on this. Every time I think it's starting to quiet down, it kind of jumps back up there.
Yes.
Without giving away too much. Especially for you, I'm sure.
So I was on vacation earlier in February when the last round from the county came out and was pushed. Mm-hmm. The troubling thing about that is that was all county tax dollars that paid for the production of that and for the distribution of that.
Right.
I know that Legislative Chair Fitzpatrick came out with a statement saying that was not their view, and I've had several good discussions with her, and I think we're working on a pathway forward.
Well, that's good.
Friday, March 1st, the appeal was heard at the appellate division. It was all a paper. It was a paper appearance. It wasn't anything in person, so we're waiting to hear on that, and then hopefully we'll be able to move ahead and get this finished up.
So I know last time we talked about there is no real time frame on these type of things. It's just
there's
wait around.
There is, but then when the county appeals, that pushes everything out.
And not to put words in your mouth, but I mean this can't, especially for you, but for the county as a taxpayer, it can't be cheap.
No. I'm just looking at so they're on their third law firm in connection with this individual series of events, and I know what I paid out of my pocket for my attorney. I'm guessing that well over $100,000 of taxpayer money has been spent on this, and it's basically a political activity using public funds and public policy to try and affect that political activity. So
and the thing is, and this is just anecdotal from people that watch the program and comment on it, it doesn't seem like, to me, it's the battle that people want to take.
No.
I mean, I'm sure you're hearing it daily, but I hear it a lot on this program.
Especially out doing petitions right now.
Oh, yeah.
That's petition season, so I'm hearing overwhelmingly people see what it is and encourage me to not give up the fight.
Right.
So that the support's been really reaffirming and overwhelming, and it's really nice to hear. And again, it's just it's just a sad situation.
It really is. And you already had momentum in coming into your re-election campaign, but this had to really help things, not just for supporters, but also for your passion for it.
Well, so here's kind of the way I look at it. I was going to run anyways. You know that.
Of
I
course.
announced that 4 years ago.
Yeah,
that
right.
I had promised the deputies I'd do 12 years, and I'm going to do 12 years if the voters will have me. But by attacking my character, it's kind of and again, you've known me a long time.
Yeah.
When you attack my character, you're pretty much guaranteeing
Yeah.
that I'm going to do everything in my power to defend it. It's very
Sure.
important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And my reputation always has been. And so they've almost guaranteed that I would not step away.
Right.
Because then it would look like maybe I had done something.
You're backing down, right.
So there's absolutely no way I was going to back down, absolutely no way I was going to step away.
Sure.
And it just reinforced my passion for this run.
What has it done for morale in the office at a time when you and I have talked about it so often on this program, where it's tough for recruit, tough for retention? Has
Right.
it changed morale, or have people understood that it's kind of a political thing?
I think everybody understands what it is. And the morale really went down in the office when they were talking about appealing the arbitrator's decision. That was just a big slap in the face. And you know, when the ARPA funds came and the county decided not to use any of that for first responders, that was a big slap in the face for
Right.
them. And so I think that most of the employees see it as an overall attack on the agency,
Right.
but it affects recruitment.
Of course.
You know, when we're talking to new people, hey, come on in, we've got a great place to work, and they go,
Well, I just saw the paper. Whatever.
what about
right?
that?
Yeah.
And you know, I think we've probably missed out on some really good candidates
That's too
because
bad.
of it.
And that's too bad, because you do have an amazing sheriff's office. We're going to talk about that in a moment, because I know I bring it up every time at the media release. You guys have got to be so constantly busy with classes
yes.
and teaching classes. I mean,
are.
and then accommodations and these type of things. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to change. We're going to take a break. We're going to change away from this topic. We're going to go to some happier news. How about that? You good?
That sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, we have Sheriff Jim Allard. Let's get right back into it. This is a great story that we received yesterday. Tell us about what's the official term? What is it?
Commendation.
A commendation. You guys always have tricky words.
COMN.
Okay.
Yeah, commendation.
It's for Deputy Jeffrey Robinson. Tell us about this, because it is an amazing story.
So it's amazing on a couple of levels. Jeff came to us. He was a city firefighter here in Corning. Decided he wanted to get into law enforcement.
That's great.
He's been with us almost a year, not quite a year.
Oh, wow.
He was only 3 weeks out of field training when this incident happened. It was, and I know you had Brandon Buter on just the other day.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah.
So this was a couple who were suffering from the withdrawals of fentanyl and decided they couldn't take any more of the pain and cut themselves. Each cut themselves.
You don't even think about that aspect to it. You think about the addiction, but just wanting to get away. Wow.
Just because
talk
of
about the power of the
physical
addiction.
pain of withdrawal is what they both said was the reason why they cut themselves, tried to commit suicide. And the female cut herself up here, cut her brachial, and was bleeding out quite quickly. And Jeff, again, one of the reasons he joined us is because we have the EMT program, and he immediately put on a tourniquet, packed the wound, started working on her. Meanwhile, he's directing another unit from another agency, take this, put that on his, do this, and
wow.
To the point where the next day, the paramedic that responded is a person I know, and he called me on my cell, and he's like, I got to tell you something. If he hadn't done what he did, there's no way she would have survived till I got there.
That's amazing.
And so I talk about the 59, now 60 life-saving events we've had in this program, but, when you look back at what cost do you put on a human life,
right?
And each one of these is somebody that's still walking around our county that wouldn't have been
Right.
had they not responded. It's just amazing to me what they do.
And
It
how do you
really
keep
is.
cool under that pressure? Like you said, to not just deal with what you're dealing with too. And oh my
Right.
god, if that doesn't deserve an accommodation, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I don't know what does.
It's just
And-
the training
under a
kicks
year.
in.
Under a year being there. Though.
Yeah, the training kicks in, and that's why training is so important.
Yeah, of course. Wow, well, that's an amazing story. So good. I'm glad we talked about that. But you mentioned Brandon Buter. We received a nice comment this morning that people thanking me for having him on the program yesterday. It's not me. I'm glad he can come on anytime he wants. He does a great job. What an amazing person. And today is International Black Balloon Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm a big fan of Brandon's.
Yeah.
Have been. I first met Brandon when he was going through treatment in our jail, and where he's gone and taken that. Now he's a peer counselor and all the stuff. And I was a big proponent for him when we got him into the OD mapping program. So that, again, for me, peer counselors that have walked that path are the most effective.
Right.
And he does such a phenomenal job. I'm happy. Brandon, I'm proud to know you and know the work that you do.
It's amazing when we talk, and you and I have talked about this before, and I talked with Brandon yesterday. Every time you're on or he's on, there's some new form of this drug. There's some new addiction. And we were talking yesterday about like the pill manufacturers, how many fentanyl's being found in nearly everything now. Nothing seems to be safe.
Yeah.
It's got to be terrifying out there.
Well, and you see the commercials on TV about the college student that takes one Percocet or what they thought. And,
right.
And, even closer to home, I know some that have taken what they thought was Xanax and overdosed.
Wow.
And the troubling thing is we see it takes more and more Narcan as they strengthen the fentanyl even more. We just had one out in Irwin a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that took, I think, 3 doses of Narcan to bring him back.
What I guess my ignorance here. What is the end game of making this so strong? I mean, I understand the addict that wants stronger and stronger, but why are they putting it in drugs that seem to be completely unrelated to someone that would maybe head towards
to
fentanyl?
Get them hooked on the higher
That's
high.
what it is. Wow,
It's all financial. Follow the money.
And it's amazing with Narcan. I was talking with Brandon about this yesterday. Just the first time I saw it out in public, where it was there, free take one. You're going, wow, it's really become that bad. Like he was saying, like a fire extinguisher, in the ear or wherever,
Yeah. It needs to be, and we've carried it on since I'm going to say 15ish, 2015. Our deputies have been carrying it since then. And using it, and the first couple of times it was a big deal, Now it's like, we Narcaned them when we moved,
Isn't that amazing? And and I'll ask you this question because I asked Brandon yesterday. There was a Times Union piece. It was an op-ed, commentary that they said that fentanyl is winning. That was the headline of there. You hope not, right?
That's interesting. Perspective.
Yes. Well, it's grabbing headlines, right? But the context of it.
It's definitely more prevalent than it's ever been, and definitely more prevalent than heroin. Heroin's taking a big back seat just because fentanyl's so much cheaper. Yeah. But I by winning it means more dead people. Right. Yeah. So
that's the shock value. I'm sure the headline, but
that seems
isn't
like
that tragic though?
Kind of a backwards way of looking at it.
Yeah. But if you look at all of these, and I know Brandon and I were talking about this, and I hope it's effective because you see the ads where it'll show a pin and the head of the pin that can kill you, and you hope that it's effective, but it's almost like and it's not just younger people. Whoever get hooked on it, it's like, well, that's PR, PSA kind of stuff, but it's really not.
No, it's not. And for the longest time, we saw people that had injury would get hurt, would get hooked on Oxycontin, and then when they couldn't get that, they'd move to heroin, and we saw that, and that's gotten better. The system has fixed itself a little bit there, but what about the kids that are born with an addiction to it? Right. From the parent, and it's a definite conundrum right now. It's a big issue, and we keep fighting it, and Brandon fights the good fight. And Steuben County Alcohol and Substance Abuse fight the good fight, and we do too, and we team up with them. Right. But we've got between 35, I think, on medically assisted treatment in the jail right now.
Is that right?
Every day.
But you have been proactive on that, though, in the jails. I have. And that was important. I know we've talked over time, I think, but that was very important to you, and I think that's something that is lacking overall, maybe in the state and perhaps the country. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was And it was funny because my opinion used to be it's a choice.
Right.
Addiction.
Right.
And then as I got into doing presentations with folks from SCASIS, met people like Brandon Buter,
Right.
Other recovering folks out there, I realized it's primarily genetic.
Right.
And some have that genetic anomaly that makes them more addictive than others.
Sure.
And Julie Haar, I don't know if you've ever had her on your program
No.
from SCASIS. She would be a worthwhile
Oh, absolutely. Then.
guest. But she actually explains the science behind it. And the first time I saw it, I went, oh, and I'm thinking of, I come from a predominantly Irish family, and
Sure.
there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and I'm going, oh.
You start to see.
Oh, yeah. And she kind of changed my opinion on it, that substance use disorder is a disease,
It is.
not a choice. And so then I've been kind of committed to it from that point on.
Right, and not to paraphrase Brandon, because I'll probably butcher it, but no one starts out, mostly no one, I'm sure,
Yeah,
just going
nobody
right to
starts out with
fentanyl.
heroin
Right,
or
right,
fentanyl,
yeah,
no.
right.
No.
So, I mean, I think
Not
that,
on purpose, at least.
and we were talking about some of these horrific drugs that are turning people essentially into zombies,
Yeah.
and what it's doing in the cities,
Yep.
and where they're losing arms and things like that. That goes to show you how powerful addiction is, because no
Yeah.
one wakes up and says, well, I'm willing to lose an arm
Well,
to
it's
escape.
like, the commendation,
Yeah.
they'd rather kill themselves than suffer
true.
the withdrawal, the sickness that comes with that physical
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to change the
Fun
subject.
times.
Yeah, after the break, we're changing the subject. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're just having too much fun on this show, our guest, Sheriff Jim Allard. So, hey, you got to see at least House Speaker Mike Johnson.
I did.
What do you
impressive.
think? Really?
Super impressive. So he came and he presented to the National Sheriff's Association, kind of gave us a breakdown on what's going on with the border and his congressional wish list, I guess, coming up. And what a completely genuine person.
Right.
Spoke about his father. His father was a firefighter.
Okay.
So this is where he comes from. His dad was a firefighter in Louisiana, was in in a bad fire and had burns to almost 70% of his body.
Oh, my gosh.
He had to take a disability retirement, and he put himself through college, first person in his family to go to college.
Wow.
Put himself through law school, and he's like, I never wanted to be Speaker of the House. That was never my aspiration.
Clearly, no, it wasn't like he was campaigning
Yeah.
for it.
He goes, I just wanted to come serve.
Isn't that great?
And he goes, as they were going through the list of folks, he says, I guess I'm the first one they found that didn't have any enemies here.
That's about what it was.
And
he had
said,
such a generic name. It was just perfect.
And he says, my goal is to continue serve in the best of my ability and try to find a path forward for our party and our country. And I thought, just so self-effacing and genuine. He's a guy I could follow.
Yeah.
And he talked about President Biden, didn't bash him.
Right.
He said, I pray for President Biden every day, that he makes better decisions, that he has the wisdom to choose correctly. And he said, but that's all I'm going to say about the president. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So refreshing.
It really is. And I know that you got kind of updates, if you will, about the border crisis,
Yeah,
Hamas
we did.
attack. I mean, that must have been some terrifying stuff.
To see, some of the things that I walked away with is the cartels are the 5th biggest employer in Mexico.
Wow.
And how detailed the border crossings are for them. They're issuing wristbands to show how much you've paid to the cartel, so that when you get across the border and the people receive you, they know where to send you. I mean, it's very refined.
Oh my God.
And so much of it is human trafficking.
Yeah.
One of the statements that they shared with us from the cartel is, you can sell drugs once, you can sell a human 1,000 times.
Isn't that horrible?
And
Do you think this is why that's become number one on people's, voters' concerns? Because, at first it was kind of ignored by the media or downplayed.
Right.
And, you saw the pictures. There was always a woman with her child. Then they started having to show what it really looks like at the border. And I think people are starting
grown men with these kids in front of them, and the kids are terrified.
Exactly.
So they're being trafficked.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not a parent that's with them.
No.
And the other very, very troubling thing was a sheriff from Idaho that did a presentation, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
why would a sheriff from Idaho be
Out of all
doing a
places.
border?
Yeah.
Because Vancouver's right across the border from him. He's seeing everything coming in on the northern border to a smaller degree that they're seeing on the southern border.
Wow.
And he, basically he said that's where they first coined every state's a border state, because the folks that are coming in unlawfully are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they estimate that it's going to take us 10 years just to figure out how much damage this has caused.
Isn't that amazing? And this
So it was not, again, we're back to the not happy times.
Right. I'm good at doing that. I
But
apologize.
it was between that and we saw actual footage of the Hamas attack that had been captured and communications made, and that was brutal.
Yeah.
Just almost every police officer that got killed in that attack was beheaded and taken back to Palestine to be publicly beaten.
Wow.
It was pretty brutal.
Isn't
Pretty
it
brutal.
discouraging, not to get on this content, isn't it discouraging, though, to see the lack of support? And, we saw it with Minnesota yesterday. The people, 20% didn't vote for Biden because of I think his rhetoric hasn't really been that supportive of Israel, but his support for Israel.
Right.
Isn't that sad that we've, for whatever reason, went down that avenue?
So the Palestinians have done a really competent job of media representation of their cause, and I'm pro-Israel, but
Right.
to watch what's going on in the Gaza Strip has to trouble you,
Oh, of course.
and on a humanitarian sense. So, and the Palestinian folks in the United States have capitalized on that and done a really good job of bringing that to the forefront. So, I know most college kids see that and say, "Whoa, we're supporting genocide."
Right. And you've got and we saw, unfortunately, with the anti-Semitism on college campuses, we know that these younger people are being taught a different level than they should be. I mean, I was reading a piece the other day, I brought on the show, I want to say it was CNN, that was actually quoting, and they, in their defense, they were fair about it, quoting Hamas numbers.
Right.
I mean, how do you use Hamas as your PR,
Again, just as Al Qaeda did. Al Qaeda was very good at PR. That's why we had all the sleeper cells that we had in the United States. So, again, it's a different world as far as media and information out there for folks to absorb.
I agree. Do you think that what's the convention going to look like? The Democrat convention? It's back in Chicago.
Boy, I don't know.
I mean, there's interesting parallels there.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's been others saying that it could get, because the protests are getting more and more every day, and they can turn violent. We've seen it. So.
Well, it reminds me of when you look at the footage from the 60s when they had protests that turned violent at almost every convention.
Yeah. It makes you worried.
Yeah.
And when leading prominent Democrats are saying that it reminds them of what was it, 68 with Mayor Daley and like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a side note. Sorry. I do this sometimes.
We digress.
I know. I'm going to take another break. How about that? Reset again, and then we'll take another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me, Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. Okay, I want to start with corrections officers. We're going to get into other issues, and I'm not going to turn this one dark, because we want to thank our corrections officers, of course.
We do.
But to kind of have that negative tone, are you still in dire need?
We are.
Yeah.
We're still almost 20% down
on
our staffing levels in the jail, and we've been, as you've seen on social media, I do the big hey, come join the team, and we'll get a couple, 3, but then we'll lose 1 or 2 more. I mean, historically we've always had a 10% turnover per year in that employee
tough job,
group. It is. It's a very tough job, and a lot of folks come in and think it's babysitting. Well, it's not.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad when you put it in there that they're protecting us. Some people don't think of it that way, but they really are protecting us.
Absolutely. They've got, and especially now with bail reform, the folks that are in jail are much more violent and are repeat offenders typically, and are folks that, it's a different population than it was 5 years ago.
Oh, and anybody that has a scorecard at home, no one thought 46 minutes in before bail reform came up. No one put money on that one. I'm kind of shocked when I just looked at the time. That should have. What happened?
What's happened to us?
But that's a great time.
Yeah.
Governor Hochul, there's a piece in Politico, who she said that she's always been tough on crime. There's this misconception that she's tough on crime, and that really, if you think about it, bail reform was signed in by Governor Cuomo, so it's not her fault. Any thoughts? Remember, we're live on TV.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I will say, I've never agreed with Cuomo and all that, but his spokesperson comes out and says she's not an innocent bystander. She's been along for the ride the whole time. And I thought that's a good way of putting it.
Well, and she's promised all of these changes to it that were going to be, game changers.
Yeah.
Still waiting.
Exactly.
Still waiting.
But she's got to understand the voters' concern with this. We talk about all the time public safety.
Yeah.
And she's thinking ahead to how well Zeldin did, thinking ahead to when she has to run, or thinking about the House races.
Right. So things that have come in under her administration is the HALT Act, which ties, speaking of correction officers, ties their hands, takes away pretty much any consequence to bad acts inside the jail. The Clean Slate Act came in under her, which is 3 years after your misdemeanor finals out, you can pretend that it never happened, and 5 years or 7 years after your felony action is done, you can pretend it never happened as far as jobs. So
again, I never understood the reasoning behind that.
Yeah.
Because they said the business community wants it. Well, those businesses can hire those people sight unseen.
Absolutely.
So why did it have to almost try to deceive them?
Right.
But we don't have to get into that. We don't have time for all that.
She does have to claim those.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, again, it's about the House. This is her way of PR-wise spinning it and hoping, and she did it the same with her minuscule changes to bail reform. Yeah. She's trying to present herself as Miss Law and Order, and I just don't think it's going to work.
I will say that this is the first time when we had our state conference in Albany in January, this is the first time a governor has appeared at our conference in 10 years.
Interesting.
Since the SAFE Act.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, what's mathematically?
Since the SAFE, it's the first one since the SAFE Act.
Yeah.
So I will give her credit for that.
Yeah.
Try to find the best in everything. I will give her credit.
Good for you. Good for you. And to your point, I mean, she knows she's not walking into the friendliest crowd, I would think.
No.
No. I mean, respectful crowd, but people that have major concerns.
Respectful.
Because her laws and her changes literally affect you day to day more than anybody else.
Correct. Negatively.
Yeah. Negatively. Yeah. So, well, I guess good for her.
She was smart. She came in, she did a quick talk, and out the door she went with no questions. So, again, it was a good opening. It was a good opening communication.
Yeah. We're going to take one last break, and then we're going to talk about some political stuff. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, being joined by Sheriff Jim Allard. I heard nothing but wonderful things about the Hornell Republican Lincoln Day dinner.
It was a wonderful dinner. It really was. And I was very impressed with several of the speakers. Supreme Court candidate Romeo really was impressive. Mm-hmm. We had a good conversation at our table.
Oh, that's nice.
So I was happy to meet her and be able to talk with her. And then the two county judge candidates both spoke, and it was good to hear them. And of course, Phil, as always, was fantastic to hear from. And how wonderful is it to have Joe Simplensky running for assembly?
I was
wonderful. So happy. Joe's a local guy here, and to see him running for the western half of the county is fantastic. Sounds like Claudia Tenney's going to pick up a few of our towns in her congressional district, so that was news that night. And
that's what's interesting about this time of year, because with the redistricting being such a mess, that it was all up in the air when we went to get petitions in Bath the other day for the Steuben County GOP. No one knew. I mean, we still had no answer at that point.
Yeah.
But you're right. I'm glad. I think we all are that Joe, because Joe's on the show all the time. People say it should be his show, and I disagree.
You got to grow some hair.
There you go. But he's doing great. And I think you couldn't have somebody better representing him. And you figure, look at what we've got. We've got Phil.
Yeah.
We've got Chris Friend. We're surrounded now with Joe, hopefully.
Yes.
Surrounded by great leaders.
Andrea Bailey.
Yeah.
Met her at the at the committee. She's going to be representing some of the northern part of the county
Yeah.
in the assembly.
Yeah.
And Margie Burns says she's a excellent candidate,
That's
so I trust Margie. So
Yeah. And it was a good
Yep.
turnout at the Lincoln Day dinner.
It was.
There always is, though. That's kind of like the kickoff of the season.
it is, and it's honestly it's kind of the premier
Yeah.
Republican get together of the season too. So I was happy to be able to speak
And you were the
about.
keynote.
I was the
That
keynote.
must have felt pretty good.
Well, and you know me. Anytime I get a chance to talk about how awesome the employees are at the sheriff's
Of course.
office, I love being able to do that.
Yeah.
So, and that's primarily what I talked about was our programs and the millions we've saved the county with our programs across the last 7 years and where we hope to go in the future.
That's great. Now let's talk about, because it is a kickoff to the season. You mentioned petitions. Petition season. You have had wonderful weather for this so far until today. But
Well, yeah, I haven't had a blizzard.
yeah, I know.
Usually in March, there's
Yes.
at least one.
Well, knock on wood. March isn't
I know.
over.
Hopefully
Yeah.
I didn't call it, right? But yeah, it's been very nice, and I've been out doing it. I've been out doing petitions every night, as you know I do, all through March. I kind of feel like I feel like I need to lead by example,
Sure.
and if I want to run, then I need to go out and do the work.
Of course.
And that's what I do. So I'm over 160 signatures
That's
myself right now
Wow,
in just over a week.
that's a great start.
And for me, it's nice hearing from people, not only what their concerns, but overwhelming support
Oh yeah.
for what our deputies do and what our correction officers do, but also for where the sheriff's office is right now. And a lot of support in what we're doing standing up for the office of sheriff.
You don't wear the uniform when you knock
Oh,
on
gosh,
people's door.
no.
Terrifying people.
That would be a violation of the Hatch Act
I would
if
just,
I
it just made me
was to
think
do that.
that'd be an interesting. Yes,
No.
of course I'll sign. Of course.
No.
I'm not even a Republican.
Well, I think that would probably be seen as
Yeah.
illegal.
Yeah, I would think so. And that's why that just hit me.
So
but,
no.
but you exactly. So you have to get 1,000 signatures.
Yeah.
That's a lot of knocking on doors.
It is, and it's a lot.
But you
of
have a
talking
great
with
team
folks.
behind you too.
I do. I've got I think almost 20 people that are out carrying for me also. Plus the committees have always been phenomenal in getting. So I've never had trouble getting signatures, but
Right.
it is a lot of work. The month of March is booked.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Especially when you want to go out every night, because there's kind of it's double-edged. You get the signatures, which you have to be on the ballot, but it's also a little bit of campaigning in a way, because you
It
get to
is.
talk to everybody and they get to meet you, which is
Yep.
the most important part of really
Yep.
local campaigning.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've met a lot of folks that are Democrats or independents, but still want to sit and talk about issues.
Oh, of course.
And I enjoy that.
Yeah.
anyways.
So you don't go with the list of just Republicans? Because I don't either. When I go out
No.
I said, why not?
I go out and talk to everybody.
Yeah, let's have a little fun with it.
Yep.
Doesn't always work that way, at least on my side. But
well, yeah.
but
yeah.
it is a fun experience, and that's why when Joe's on the program, we tell people get involved with the committee. It's pretty simple.
Yes.
And if you get signatures for any candidate, they will love you. You'll get a Christmas card from them practically.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is tough work, and
It
some
is.
people really rely on. I mean, you'll be fine, but some people rely on getting those last few signatures that you may not
From
have
the
expected.
committee, yeah.
From the committee.
Yeah.
So join. So are you excited about the campaigning season?
Yeah. I enjoy it.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
So some of the best advice I got was from the former Wayne County Sheriff Barry Verds. When I first got elected, day one, he called me up and said, "Congratulations."
Yeah.
I said, "Thank you, Sheriff." And he said, "You know what tomorrow is, right?" And I'm like, "Geez, you got me, Sheriff. I don't know." He goes, "You know what tomorrow is."
No,
Help me out here,
yeah,
partner.
yeah.
I don't know. And he goes, "Tomorrow's the first day of your reelection campaign.
Yeah, it really is.
Make sure you look at it from that perspective." And so I've always been committed to getting out into the public and meeting with folks and hearing what's going on and trying to make sure that we're providing the best service that we can. And a lot of that is the one-on-one interaction
It really is.
across the county. So
And just going back to what we were saying with Joe and so many others, what a great slate that we have.
We do.
And it makes it very easy to take out the petitions when you like everybody you're taking out the petition
yeah,
for.
yeah.
Where you don't
We're
have to
so
try to
lucky.
defend somebody.
Yeah,
you
we're
know?
so incredibly lucky.
The only thing we're not lucky is about 30 of them we have to take out. Yeah, give us
There's
20
a lot of
minutes.
them
Yeah,
right now.
please sign.
Well,
quick.
and it's going to get even more so with the
Yeah.
new law that
I hate
everybody
it.
has to be on an even number.
Do you know how unfair that is for smaller local people running in a contested race?
Yeah.
How are they going to get any ad time? How are they going to get any attention? They're not.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I just think that was unfair to the smaller candidates.
I do too.
But
Yeah, the town and village candidates. Yep.
just before we go, is there any way to help your campaign?
Sure. Reach out to me on social media. I'm on Allard for Sheriff is on Facebook. Reach out to that. Let me know. We'll come get your signature if you're registered Republican or conservative, or run on a conservative line too.
Good.
And we'll get your signature, and just continue to voice your opinion and pay attention to what's going on in our county government. I think for me that's been the big lesson in all of this is there was a concerted effort to hide what was going on, and until people started asking, that's when the truth comes out. When people start asking and get involved and start following what's going on, then transparency comes and everybody's better for it.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Well, thanks again, as always, for being on the program. And we'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 with Frankly Speaking. Please join us.